Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 15.6 has been out a week or so to developers and beta testers with Beta 1. I've been using it full-time on my 13 Pro Max and also my iPad Pro, and wanted to share with you 3 things that you should know about it. Now first, as far as the overall features with iOS 15.6, it does not appear to have a lot of updates in it. In fact, in the code is really all we saw as far as updates. So if we go into Messages, within Messages, in the future, we'll be able to hide the emoji search bar. Now, why you would want to do this specifically, I'm not sure, as it was a feature, but it looks like based on accessibility features, we'll be able to do that later on. There's also additional code for accessibility within iOS 15.6, so we'll probably see more of that a little bit later. Also, this past week, they updated Apple Wallet with the Apple Wallet account card. Now, this is pretty much just in the United States, and I've heard from people around the world they've been able to see it, but they had to change their region to the United States. So you see, as we move this, the actual card changes color with the Apple logo. So as I move the card around using my phone, you'll see it changes. This is just to allow us to use our iTunes card, those iTunes gift cards where you can use them in the App Store. You can use them for purchases on your iPhone and within the Apple Store. You can see that here. It says pay with your iPhone in the Apple Store, shop online, or buy apps, subscriptions, and other services. So it's not really for anything else, and maybe they have some future plans with this, but right now that's all you can do with it. Now, the first thing out of those 3 things you should know is this is pretty buggy for me. iOS 15.6 has had many lockups for me, whether that be the Music app. Usually the way a lockup will work with this update is I'll go into Music app and then maybe go to the main page and go to scroll, and it does nothing. I'll tap on something, it does nothing. So I'll scroll, it doesn't work, then I'll close it out, it resolves the problem, I go back in, it loads again, and then it works. I've had that problem many times with 15.6 Beta 1. So many lockups, and the only way to fix it is actually close the app out and start over. I've seen that in third-party apps, I've seen that in Apple apps, and it continues to be an ongoing issue. So there's definitely issues with it still, and it's still buggy. The second thing to know is that cellular data seems to be better than iOS 15.5. So with 15.6, Apple rolled back the cellular modem firmware update to a prior version or a slightly younger version, and it seems to work better than 15.5. So when you're switching to LTE or 5G, it looks to be much better as far as the overall connectivity for me. So you'll see here I have 4 different bars. Let's go ahead and go into speed test and take a look. And I'm in an office, but let's go to speed test and see what we get. So here we go, speed test. Let's wait for it. We'll hit go, and we should get pretty decent speeds. Now we're down to 2 bars, but it's 5G UC. So we'll give it just a moment here. We're between 40 to 50 megabits per second on T-Mobile, and that's okay. It's not amazing or anything, but it's doing just fine, and usually if you check it again, it will go up. Upload speeds are between 15 to 20 megabits per second, give or take, and not bad at all. And my ping is about 40 milliseconds. So not incredible. If I was to run it again, it would probably increase, but the overall connectivity is not dropping. So if I'm listening to music and it switches cell towers, it's not dropping on me like it did with 15.5. The third thing to know is that battery is all over the place for me, not only on the iPhone, but also on the iPad. Now this is expected with a beta, and you can report that in the feedback app as you have issues, but it's definitely all over the place. If we go into settings, go to battery, and you can see my battery health is at 100%. Again, here's Coconut battery just to share with you that and keep you updated, but we're still at 100% capacity. It's working fine. And as far as the last 10 days, you can see here, this was yesterday. I had 3 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, 7 hours and 57 minutes of screen off time, and about 50% usage. So it's not really that good with this update. Now, it's an early beta, so I'm not too concerned about it, but you'll see music is again using background activity, even though I don't have the app running. So 3 hours and 4 minutes of screen on time, 5 hours and 12 minutes of screen off time, and I'm seeing the same from others who have sent me their battery. So we'll take a look at that. So for those that have sent in their screenshots, this is from Abhishek on an iPhone 11 Pro Max, and he had 3 hours and 25 minutes of screen on time, 3 hours and 1 minute of screen off time with 50% usage. Again, this isn't great. Then Matt sent in his battery usage on an iPhone 13. He had better usage, 5 hours and 23 minutes of screen on time, 3 hours and 27 minutes of screen off time, and used about 75% of his battery. However, I can't tell if he charged during that time or not. So At this point, I would say it's just not that great and it will improve over time. Now on the iPad, battery life is still pretty terrible. So I haven't had any crashes or anything on the iPad, but it hasn't been great for me. So you'll see my battery's currently at 15%. I've been recording with it, so it's going down, but it's just not great overall. We'll let it load. And again, here's Coconut Battery showing some of the statistics for it. And yesterday I had 4 hours and 15 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 13 minutes of screen off time, and it was about 75% usage. Normally I'm getting about 5 hours when the battery really should be lasting me about 10. You'll see most of my usage is YouTube, and so with streaming over Wi-Fi, watching YouTube, it's using an awful lot of power. The overall experience is just fine, it's smooth and fluid, but it's really just not great with battery. But what is better with iOS 15.6 is cellular connectivity, like I mentioned, and also it still performs pretty well. It's fast and snappy on older devices and newer devices alike, so whether you have an iPhone 7 or an 8 Plus like this one here, you'll see it's nice and fast. Going into things like music, going into browse, we're just waiting for Wi-Fi. It's still nice and smooth and fast. So I really haven't had any issues as far as performance other than the lockups I mentioned before. Now, as far as the storage bug, let's take a closer look at that. I continue to have people send me their storage, and it's just not great. Now, this is not meant to be checked all of the time. It's completely fine for it to vary, and it will change all of the time. But you'll see here, I'm using 120 gigs out of 256 gigs on my 13 Pro Max. We'll let it load. It will take just a moment, and the storage at the bottom is what we're concerned with. So again, we'll let it load here. We'll go all the way to the bottom, and it's still loading. So we'll go back into the iPhone 11 also, scroll to the bottom. That seems to load a little bit faster, but has less used on it, and we'll give it a moment here. It took a moment to load, and you'll see my system data is quite low, 2.96 gigabytes on my 13 Pro Max and 3.96 gigabytes on the iPhone 11. Now for me, it's quite low, but quite a few of you have sent in your data and what it's using, and it's quite a lot. I've seen as much as 150 gigabytes now, which seems to be quite a lot. Now you can fix some of that by clearing the cache in your settings for Safari, and that usually will take care of it, but it's still a problem for some people. Hopefully we can fix that in the future, and I'll talk about that in a different video. Now, one person did mention that the phone was getting overly warm when charging. That shouldn't be too much of an issue for most people, as the iPhone should manage it itself. However, on a beta that can change because, well, it's a beta and some of the code is changed, so it could go outside of spec. But there's temperature sensors within the phone and within the MagSafe chargers to help you keep that regulated. So you shouldn't have to mess with that too much, but just keep in mind with a beta, it could go outside of spec perhaps, but Apple doesn't necessarily say that they've changed anything with that or that there should be bugs. No one really mentioned any issues with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, just cellular, that it was better mostly for 15.6. So with 15.5, that seemed to be an issue. And that leads me to, should you install iOS 15.6 betas? And at this point, I would say no, especially if you're wanting to install iOS 16 betas. However, 15.6, if you're a developer and you're developing apps, then definitely I would recommend it. And then of course, report feedback. Otherwise, I would probably pass and wait for at least beta 2 or beta 3, or probably iOS 16 beta 1 on June 6th. Now, iOS 16 beta 1 is expected to be quite buggy, so I really wouldn't install that on your main device unless you know what you're getting into. I've had it so bad in the past that I have to go back on my main device and then I'll just put it on a secondary device. It's not worth it. Sometimes it's super buggy, and we've seen that in the past. We don't expect the public beta until July, and that's pretty typical with public betas. With iOS 13, we had a late public beta, and it was after beta 2. We had it between beta 2 and beta 3. They released the public beta. So expect something along those lines, but that seems to be pretty typical. Now, also this last week, Apple stopped signing iOS 15.4.1. Now, we expected iOS 15.5.1 because Apple released it for tvOS and HomePodOS to fix an issue with music playback and audio pausing. So far, they haven't released it for iOS. This is the first time we've seen that in a very long time, and I really expected it sometime this past week. However, based on what we've seen in the past, I would expect it maybe early this coming week, so maybe on the 30th or 31st, and we're also waiting for iOS 15.6 beta 2 that we can expect this week as well. So it's possible we have them on the same day, although that's very rare, so maybe one day we have 15 15.5.1 to the public, and the other day 15.6 beta 2, and then of course WWDC in just about a week or so from now. So of course I'm looking forward to that. Now let's take a look at the comments and see what you had to say. I have my iPad here with all of your comments, and Ryan Espina says, with 15.6 beta 1, my XS Max is feeling on fire when I'm using a fast charger, which has never happened before, only now. Now, this is one of those comments I sort of referenced in the iOS video a little bit earlier, saying that, well, it shouldn't get too hot, but being that it's a beta, it's possibly an issue, so definitely report it in feedback. For Aesthetic said, recently just updated to iOS 15.6 Developer Beta 1 on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. Was rocking 15.5 for a little bit, but the battery life for me was horrendous on 15.5, along with a few miscellaneous hiccups. So far, things have been a lot more smooth on 15.6. And so, like I said, performance doesn't seem to be an issue on 15.6. Battery life is mostly my issue, along with lockups and freezes. Charlie Gorham says, iOS 15.6, no issues, not running hot, very smooth, and I love it so far using iPhone 12 Pro Max. Arav Aurora says, I've been using iPadOS 15.6 Beta 1 on my iPad Pro 9.7-inch 2016. Since it came out so far, it's a hit or miss. The battery doesn't last longer than 4 hours, which is what you would expect from an old iPad. The performance, on the other hand, is good, with no lag or any sort of issues. And like I said, with the iPad, it just seems to be really not great. I'm not sure what Apple did with earlier versions of iOS 15, but it's definitely much worse than it used to be. Hopefully with maybe future versions of iOS 15.6 or iOS 16, it gets better. Mohammed Emenduru says, hopefully I'm saying that properly, I'm on iOS 15.6 on iPhone 6s Plus. I noticed the battery drains quicker than 15.5 when the phone is not in use. I haven't seen that too much except on the iPad, so again, really hit or miss with that battery. Mark Jones says 15.5 for me, as I tried 15.6, so he's referencing whether or not which one's better, but the battery life went down too quickly for me. When using 15.5 with an eSIM here in the UK, it does keep dropping calls. A modem update is needed to fix this. Also, Apple Maps has changed on all devices now. You don't get the 3D image of a lot of normal buildings unless you zoom in closer. I find that really depends on the city that you're in, but I also hope that iOS 16 that they bring the look around to the whole of the UK. Of course, look around is done by cars driving around with different cameras on the roof, so you'll see that, but it takes a long time to do that. Google's been at it for many years, so is Apple, but it takes time around the world. So that's everything with 15.6 Beta 1. I expect 15.6 Beta 2, hopefully early in this week, and then also keep in mind in the United States, it's a holiday on Monday. It's a national holiday, Memorial Day, recognizing those who have fallen in the military. So we probably won't have anything on Monday, but Tuesday or Wednesday we could see Beta 2, and then on Wednesday, iOS 15.5.1, or either one. We could see them on the same day in either order, so we don't really know for sure, as Apple hasn't said. But look forward to those this coming week, at least Beta 2. Now, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.